Hello there again, YouTube. It is once again I, your gothic host with the most, Knox Burzum, back to bringing more blasphemous banter. Gonna be on my own for the next few episodes. Long story short, the wife has been absolutely exhausted between fibromyalgia and work, and she's tapping out for a few episodes. So, you got me, folks. Me alone. Me! Anyway, the first movie that we're going to talk about today is End of Days from 1999, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Gabriel Byrne, and Robin Tunney. It was directed by Peter Hyams, written by Andrew W. Marlowe. It is an action fantasy horror film from roughly the turn of the century, obviously since 1999, and was, of course, part of that slew of like fantasy end of the world movies that we basically got right towards between 1998 and just before the year 2000 hit. There was like 6 to 8 kind of big movies that hit to theaters, and they all sort of had the same "the world is about to end" scenario. They were about something either religious or pseudo-religious. End of Days and Bless the Child are probably the only two that really stick out in my mind. But if you know what I'm talking about, feel free to comment down below and let us know which one of the turn of the century End of Days films was your favorite. So, this movie, rated at only 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Fucking terrible, I know. 32% audience score. You would think it would be higher. I genuinely do think that it should be a higher rated movie, but we'll get to that in a moment. I understand why it's got a low rating, and we'll go over it. Parental guide and trigger warnings. Bluntly stated, it is rated R for gore, language, nudity, religious iconography that may or may not be being used in a really violent manner. So if you're someone who has one of those weird hang-ups, then this movie might not be for you. And to be honest, as I always say, in all great honesty, it's a horror film. If you don't like things about religious horror, probably not going to be for you. That being stated, if you do like rock'em sock'em movies about Satan versus a good guy, this movie is definitely for you. That's exactly what this film is. In fact, that's basically the summary of this movie. See you later, folks. I joke, but when my wife and I were going through this, which, by the way, this was her very first time watching it, which I didn't know until about 3 days beforehand. And throughout the entire movie, the running joke between the two of us was, this movie can be summed up in 2 sentences. Satan fights the good guy. We can find out if the good guy wins or if Satan wins. The end. There's no real character development. Anyway, notable facts, awards, etc. One of the notable things that I found about this that I thought was kind of interesting via IMDb is that this was actually Arnold Schwarzenegger's first work in 3 years when he made this movie. The long and short of it was that when he did Mr. Freeze in Batman Forever, apparently directly afterwards he had open heart surgery. And like for 2.5 years, no one would fucking hire him, even though he was perfectly fine. But because open heart surgery gets people all weirded out, and what, are you insurable? Are you not insurable? Are you gonna be able to do these super vigorous 20-hour days that a lot of the actors have to do? Because remember, sometimes you shoot for 18 hours straight, sometimes you shoot for 20 hours straight. Don't know. Sometimes you're in hair and makeup at 3 a.m. and you don't go to bed until 3 a.m. the next day. Sometimes life's hard like that. So apparently people didn't know if he would be able to survive the shoot or not, and I guess it took about a week and a half of just being shadowed by these Poindexters from the office, constantly asking him if he was okay or not, and they finally backed off. But I thought that was amusing, that Arnold Schwarzenegger, of all people, couldn't get insured for a movie. Oh, let's see here. My personal rating, for what this movie is, I give this movie a 7 out of 10. It's never going to, it's not an intellectual film, but it is a fun film, and it does exactly what it sets out to do. So if you like movies about, good guys with bad attitudes and bad guys with worse attitudes and a gorgeous damsel in distress that has to be saved by the knight in not so shining armor, then this movie is for you. And with that, 3, 2, 1, spoilers! Wow, that was terrible. Spoilers! Told you on my own, I'm not that great sometimes. So the movie opens up with Christine York being born, and she is whisked away from her mother to this Hollywood-esque satanic ritual wherein there's this rattlesnake and they sacrifice it, and Udo Kier is of course the head priest. And by the way, I fucking adore Udo Kier. There's not been a movie yet where he's been in that I don't think he makes a shining example of himself. He's great. Anyway, he gets the kid to suck rattlesnake venom off of his finger, which is gross, by the way. And then we cut to 19 years later, 20 years later. 19, 20 years later. I don't know. Anyway, in New York City, where Jericho, who is played by Schwarzenegger, is attempting to, take one to the dome. And basically, we find out over the course of the entire movie, well, we don't really find out, this just is his character. He is suicidally depressed. He is homicidally drunk all the time. Well, he says that he is on the wagon, but I don't know, man. The way that he downs that forbidden floor menagerie drink in the beginning of the movie, which it is pizza, Pepto-Bismol, 8 ounces of hot coffee, a little bit of leftover beer. I think he puts a thing of chow mein in there. It's gross. That is weird. He says later in the movie that he's been on the wagon for some time, but he has beer in there, clearly. Anyway, whatever. This movie is so paint by numbers, I don't really want to lead you guys by the hand through it. There are so many interesting things that take place during it. A couple of my favorite are the real big cinematic special effects shots that are done. One of the really good ones is a albino on the subway who grabs Christine by the arm, and he shatters into porcelain, and he just falls to the ground. And you have to remember that this was filmed in 1999, so even though it looks fake today, like back then it looked amazing, and honestly it hasn't aged that poorly. And then it just looks really neat, and the sound design is beautiful behind it, and I just really enjoyed it. The second shot that I always really enjoy in the film is a nudie shot. Robin Tunney and Gabriel Byrne are in bed with whoever one of the wives in the movie is supposed to be. And the long story short is that they're having a menage a trois, and as Limp Bizkit plays in the background softly, Gabriel Byrne is pushing the two women's faces together, and they merge and they melt. And this is preceded by this long panning shot going up the legs all the way from the ankles to the ladies' faces, wherein their legs melt into one another and their hips slowly start to merge into each other, their tummies start to become one, their breasts become one with one another. At one point in time there's a tri-boob going on, which looks really funny, by the way, because they obviously just sandwiched these two together in this strange automated effect somehow. And of course at the end of it, when the camera pans all the way over Gabriel Byrne's body, it pops up that it is Robin Tunney's face. And it's just a really neat shot to see. The lighting is fantastic. The sets are top notch. You forget that you're looking at sets. I honestly thought growing up that real houses have been used. I genuinely thought that it was shot in a subway tunnel. Like, anything that isn't a direct city shot, because the city shots, I'm sure, were just them fucking around in New York City, because I've been there before and I've seen shit being shot, and that's just how they do it there, because it's cheap and it's easy. But everything else is a set, I'm sure. But it doesn't look like it, so it's pretty neat. I really enjoyed it. There's not a whole lot to spoil, and I don't want to give away all the action because it's a fun action film and it's a dumb action film. So I said I would get to the issue with the movie. So here's the issues with the film. It is a dumb, meat-headed movie. It takes overt advantage of the hero's journey way too much, and it doesn't really do anything new with it. And that was one of the gripes that I've seen written online a few times, is that the story doesn't really do anything new with what it has. While it did make $20.5 million in its opening weekend, and a combining with $31 million from its 5-day Wednesday opening, it's still not considered to have. It's considered to have done average, which I think is kind of sad. Rotten Tomatoes again gives the film an approval rating of 11% based on 101 critical reviews. And the consensus is an overblown thriller with the formulaic action scenes and poor acting. Metacritic gives it an average score of 33 out of 100 based on 33 critical reviews, which is fucking horrible, by the way. And audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average of a B- on an A+ to F scale, which I think is B- is fair. So I don't think that some of the criticisms about this movie are very fair. Like, USA Today calls Schwarzenegger's performance among his worst, noting that he seems to be having trouble with his lines and doesn't get to make his trademark wisecracks. Yeah, but that's not who Schwarzenegger was playing, and he didn't really have trouble with his lines. It just wasn't a wisecracking, ham-fisted badass like he usually is. This guy was supposed to be complex and have problems, and I think Schwarzenegger did fine. I would give this movie, I said I give it a 7 out of 10. It's not bad. It's really not bad. And I think that you can have fun watching it. So that's my opinion. I guess that's really about it. I hope you like, comment, subscribe. We have a Patreon page. We're going to have it set up very shortly here for donations. And I hope to see you all on the flip side. Till then, peace, love, and heavy fucking metal, folks. Goodbye.